In the shadow of a brewing conflict, the galaxy's leading powers found themselves at an impasse. The Council of Planets convened in a colossal space station orbiting the vibrant planet of Viridian, its lush green surface contrasting starkly with the tension filling the chambers. Leaders from each faction glowered at one another, their faces set in hard lines of suspicion and distrust. All around them, holographic displays flickered with reports of skirmishes and hostile maneuvers that threatened to erupt into full-scale war. Among the leaders was Chancellor Aria Callan of the Lumina Confederation, a diplomat known for her shrewd negotiation tactics. She leaned forward, her voice steady yet urgent. "We must find a way to defuse this situation. If we don't, we risk losing everything we hold dear." Across the chamber, Gracklin, a towering figure representing the brutish Korath Dominion, scoffed. "Your words are as empty as the promises of your kind. Weakness will only lead to our demise. If you wish to survive, we must prepare for war." The heated exchanges escalated, voices overlapping as fear and pride clashed. Just when it seemed that chaos would reign, a holographic message materialized in the center of the room. It depicted a shimmering icy landscape, sparkling under a distant sun. A message followed. ***, join us in the Deathworld for the annual Winter Games. Witness the resilience of our people and discover a different way to forge alliances. Together, we can shape a better future. ***. As the holographic display faded, silence enveloped the chamber. The mention of the Deathworlders, a species known for thriving in one of the galaxy's most extreme environments, sent ripples of intrigue and skepticism. "Winter Games," murmured Therak, the calculating leader of the Iron Syndicate. His interest piqued. "What do they expect us to learn? It's just a show of primitive sports." But Callan felt a spark of hope. Perhaps they understand something we do not. Perhaps they know that overcoming adversity together can foster true bonds. The council debated the merits of attending. Gracklin remained adamantly against it, seeing it as a waste of time, while Callan and Therak argued for the opportunity to witness the Deathworlders' famed resilience firsthand. Finally, after a lengthy discussion that pushed the limits of diplomacy, the decision was made. They would attend the Winter Games. Preparations began swiftly, with each leader assembling their entourages. The mood shifted from one of impending doom to cautious curiosity. Despite their differences, they were bound by a common goal, the hope of peace, however tenuous it seemed. As their ships prepared for departure, Callan couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected invitation might hold the key to a new path forward. She gazed out the observation window of the station, her thoughts drifting to the icy landscape awaiting them. The Deathworlders had thrived in a place where others faltered. Perhaps it was time for the leaders to embrace their own challenges with a new perspective. As the engines roared to life and their ships broke orbit, the leaders departed for the Deathworld. Tension remained palpable, but now it was tinged with anticipation. Little did they know, the true test of their resolve and the foundation of their future alliances awaited them in the frost-laden arenas of a world that was both beautiful and brutal, a world that could change the course of their histories forever. The journey to the Deathworld was unlike any other the leaders had experienced. Their ships sliced through the stars, leaving trails of shimmering light in their wake. As they neared the icy planet, the view shifted dramatically. Swirling storms of frost and snow engulfed the landscape below, a stark contrast to the vibrant hues of Viridian. Upon descent, the leaders were greeted by a chilling wind that howled like a wild beast, stirring a mix of trepidation and awe in their hearts. As their ships landed in a vast clearing, a delegation of Deathworlders awaited them, clad in vibrant furs and gear designed for the harsh conditions. These warriors were robust and intimidating, with features that bore the marks of survival in a world where danger lurked at every turn. Their skin glistened with frost, and their eyes sparkled with a fierce intelligence that spoke of countless battles against the elements. Chancellor Callan stepped forward, her breath visible in the frigid air. "We come in peace and curiosity, ready to witness your Winter Games," she declared, her voice echoing in the stillness. The lead Deathworlder, a towering figure named Calithar, nodded, his expression unreadable beneath the thick fur surrounding his face. You are brave to journey here. Many have perished in this world's embrace, but you will find our spirits unyielding. Join us. We shall show you what it means to thrive against the odds. The leaders exchanged glances, a mixture of admiration and apprehension flowing among them. They were quickly ushered to a nearby settlement, where makeshift structures of ice and stone rose like monuments to human endurance. As they entered the village, the air filled with the scent of roasted meats and the sounds of laughter, a celebration of life amidst the frigid landscape. Their hosts were eager to showcase the Deathworlder's unique winter sports, and the first demonstration began. With breathtaking agility, competitors launched themselves from steep snowbanks into a series of twisting flips and spins, gliding effortlessly on sleek boards. Callan's heart raced as she watched the athletes defy gravity and the elements, their movements so fluid they seemed to dance on the ice. Remarkable, Theric said, his arms crossed and brow furrowed in skepticism. But what does this have to do with diplomacy? Everything, Callan replied, her gaze locked on the performers. It's about resilience, unity, and finding strength in adversity. This is not merely a spectacle. It's a testament to their spirit. As the day wore on, the leaders were introduced to various winter sports, each more exhilarating than the last. They witnessed snowball combat, where teams engaged in strategic battles, and survival races, where participants navigated treacherous terrain using only their wits and skills. The Deathworlders moved with a confidence born of years adapting to their environment, and the leaders could not help but be captivated. Between events, laughter and stories flowed as the Deathworlders mingled with their guests. Callan found herself sitting with Calithar by a roaring fire, sharing tales of their home planets. The Deathworlder spoke of ancient traditions and the harsh winters that shaped their society, while Callan shared her people's struggles for peace in the face of overwhelming odds. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and orange, a sense of camaraderie began to take root. Callan realized that these competitions were more than mere displays of athleticism. They were a bridge to understanding and empathy, an opportunity for leaders from disparate worlds to forge connections in a place where survival was an art form. The leaders went to bed that night with a sense of excitement and anticipation for what the coming days would hold. The Deathworld had opened its doors to them, offering not just a glimpse of its culture, but a chance to explore the uncharted territory of their own hearts and minds, a path that could potentially lead to peace. The next morning, the crisp air was alive with the sounds of celebration. Snowflakes danced lazily through the air as colorful banners fluttered in the wind, announcing the start of the first major event of the Winter Games, the Ice Climb Challenge. A colossal mountain towered over the village, its sheer icy face glinting under the bright sun, daring participants to conquer its heights. The Deathworlders had prepared for the event meticulously, setting up elaborate courses that promised both excitement and peril. As the leaders gathered at the foot of the mountain, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Callan felt her pulse quicken as she surveyed the icy peaks, each one more daunting than the last. She was acutely aware that this was not merely a competition. It was a test of their mettle, a way to demonstrate their willingness to confront challenges head-on. "Do you really think it's wise for us to participate?" asked Gracklin, a scowl etched on his face. "We're diplomats, not climbers. We should observe, not risk our necks." Callan met his gaze, her expression unwavering. What better way to understand their culture than to immerse ourselves in it? We need to show them that we are willing to embrace challenges, just as they do. Before he could retort, Calithar stepped forward, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "We welcome all who dare to climb. There are no spectators in our world, only participants." His words resonated through the gathering, and slowly, the leaders began to shed their doubts. As the competitors lined up, each leader donned specialized climbing gear provided by their hosts. Callan could feel her heart racing as she strapped on her harness, her determination overriding her fear. Next to her, Thurok appeared equally determined, a grim smile on his face as he adjusted his gloves. The rules were simple. Each participant would scale the icy cliff using only their skills and instincts. Time was not the only factor. Style and teamwork would also play crucial roles in determining the victor. The atmosphere buzzed with energy as competitors shouted encouragement to one another, forging an immediate bond that transcended their political allegiances. With a loud horn signaling the start of the challenge, Callan leaped into action, scrambling up the mountain. She quickly found her rhythm, relying on her training from the climbing courses on her home planet. Graklen, who had reluctantly joined the competition, found himself surprisingly nimble as he navigated the icy ledges, his size proving to be an advantage in stability. As they ascended, laughter and shouts filled the air. Callan caught sight of Thurok, who struggled initially but soon found his footing, his competitive spirit igniting. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the mountain, causing everyone to pause. An ice shelf had given way under the weight of a competitor. Gasps filled the air as the climber slid precariously toward the edge. Instinctively, Callan and several others reached out, grasping for the falling figure. In that moment, barriers shattered. Leaders who had been poised to compete against one another were united by a single purpose: to save a life. They'd formed a human chain, arms locked together as they reached for the dangling competitor. With a final heave, they'd pulled the climber to safety just as the ice shelf crumbled beneath them. The group erupted into cheers, adrenaline pumping as the near disaster solidified their newfound solidarity. They exchanged glances, exhilaration sparking an understanding among them. As they continued the climb, Callan felt a deep sense of connection forming, one that transcended their differences. They were no longer just leaders of opposing factions. They were climbers, united in their quest to conquer not just the mountain, but their own fears and the weight of their past animosities. The competition had transformed into a powerful lesson, a reminder of the strength found in unity and collaboration. As the climbers reached the summit, the cold wind whipped around them, a sharp reminder of the treacherous environment they had conquered together. Callan stood at the peak, her heart racing with exhilaration and newfound camaraderie. Below them, the village appeared small and fragile, a testament to the resilience of the Deathworlders. With a newfound sense of achievement, the group gathered at the summit, laughter ringing out as they shared stories of their ascent. Graklen, who had initially been dismissive of the event, was now glowing with pride. "I must admit, that was far more exhilarating than I anticipated," he said, a rare smile breaking through his usual stoic demeanor. Kelfar approached, clapping a massive hand on Graklen's shoulder. "You did well, Gorethian. It takes strength to embrace the unknown. Perhaps there is hope for your people after all." Surrounded by laughter and camaraderie, Callan felt the tension of previous days begin to dissolve. They were no longer representatives of divided factions. They were athletes, competitors, and allies, sharing a moment of triumph against a shared adversary, the Deathworld. As they made their way back down the mountain, their conversations shifted from sports to the challenges their worlds faced. The leaders discussed their struggles, fears, and aspirations, finding common ground in their desire for a better future. Callan learned that Thurok, despite his reputation for ruthlessness, harbored deep regrets over past conflicts that had torn his people apart. "I never wanted my people to live in fear," he confessed, his tone unexpectedly earnest. "We were once a great civilization, but power corrupted us. I hope to change that." Callan nodded, encouraged by his vulnerability. "We all bear the scars of our pasts, but perhaps together we can forge a different path, one where understanding takes precedence over conflict." The group descended the mountain, energized by their shared experiences. They passed by the bustling village, where Deathworlders prepared for the next event, a dazzling ice sculpture competition. The leaders exchanged excited glances, their competitive spirits rekindled. The atmosphere shifted as the competition began, with teams carving intricate sculptures from massive blocks of ice. Laughter and cheers filled the air as Deathworlders showcased their artistry, transforming plain ice into breathtaking masterpieces. The leaders watched in awe, their previous reservations about the Deathworlders melting away like the ice beneath the warm sun. Inspired, Callan suggested they form teams with their Deathworlder hosts. Let's compete alongside them. It will show our willingness to embrace this culture and learn from it, she proposed, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Grackland raised an eyebrow, but nodded, intrigued by the idea. Very well, let's see if we can outshine these ice dwellers, he said with a competitive smirk. The teams formed quickly, each leader paired with a Deathworlder, bringing together their unique skills and perspectives. As they began to carve, the challenges became more than just a test of skill. They fostered collaboration. Grackland's strength complemented a Deathworlder's artistry, while Callan's strategic mind paired well with a particularly clever local named Myra, whose talent for shaping ice was unparalleled. As the sculptures took shape, the air buzzed with energy and laughter. The competition became a celebration of creativity and collaboration, with each team showcasing not only their artistic flair, but the growing bonds between them. In this melting pot of cultures, the leaders found themselves laughing and sharing stories as they worked, their previous reservations fading into the background. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the village, Callan stepped back to admire their creation, a magnificent sculpture that depicted a phoenix rising from the ice, symbolizing rebirth and hope. She marveled at how, amidst the icy trials of the Deathworld, they were slowly beginning to thaw the frozen barriers that had kept them apart for so long. This competition had turned into a profound lesson. That strength lay not just in individual prowess, but in the unity forged through collaboration and understanding. And as the final touches were added, Callan felt a surge of optimism. Perhaps the seeds of lasting peace were being sown in this remote corner of the galaxy, where the spirit of competition was paving the way for something far greater than any of them had anticipated. As night fell, a blanket of stars twinkled overhead, illuminating the village with a celestial glow. The leaders and their Deathworlder counterparts gathered around a massive bonfire, sharing stories and laughter, celebrating not just their sculptures, but the connections forged through the day's events. Callan felt an overwhelming sense of camaraderie among the group, a warmth that stood in stark contrast to the icy chill of the Deathworld. However, the tranquility was short-lived. As the leaders reveled in their newfound alliances, dark clouds began to gather overhead, blotting out the stars. A sudden gust of wind swept through the village, chilling the air and sending shivers down everyone's spine. Calthar's expression shifted from joy to concern as he gazed up at the sky. A storm approaches, he warned, his voice grave. Callan felt a knot tighten in her stomach. What kind of storm? It is no ordinary tempest, Calthar replied. In this world, storms can be fierce and unpredictable, often accompanied by snow and freezing winds that can trap those unprepared. We must seek shelter. As the winds howled and the first snowflakes began to fall, urgency overtook the celebration. The leaders and their Deathworlder allies hastily made their way to a nearby communal lodge, constructed from thick logs and reinforced with ice. Inside, the atmosphere shifted from festivity to a focused determination as they prepared for the oncoming storm. Once inside, Callan and the others gathered around a large table, illuminated by flickering lanterns. The sounds of the wind and the rising snow outside became a constant reminder of their precarious situation. As the storm intensified, Callan couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. How long will it last? She asked, turning to Calthar. It could be hours, or days, he replied, his brow furrowed in worry. It is difficult to predict in this harsh climate. As the night wore on, the storm raged outside, shaking the lodge and filling the air with an eerie howl. Inside, the atmosphere turned tense. The leaders exchanged worried glances, the reality of their situation dawning upon them. They were stranded in an unfamiliar world, with the only certainty being the fierce nature of the Deathworld. Amidst the chaos, a sense of fear crept into their hearts. Old rivalries bubbled beneath the surface, threatening to resurface in this moment of vulnerability. Callan sensed the unease as Gracklin and Theric exchanged glances filled with unspoken tension. "Maybe this is a sign that we shouldn't have come here," Gracklin muttered, crossing his arms. "We are not equipped for this environment. We should have focused on our own realms instead of meddling in the affairs of this ice world." "Do not let fear dictate our actions," Callan countered, her voice firm. "We are here together, and we need to support one another. This storm may test us, but we must show strength in unity." Kelthar nodded in agreement. "The Deathworld has a way of revealing the truth about those who enter it. You are all capable of more than you realize. Let us embrace this challenge together." As they shared their fears and doubts, the leaders began to open up to one another. Theric, usually guarded, spoke of his homeland's struggles against oppression and corruption, revealing the burden he carried for his people. Gracklin, too, shared the weight of his past decisions, recounting the failures of his leadership. In that dimly lit lodge, the barriers that had separated them began to crumble. They were no longer just representatives of opposing factions. They were individuals with hopes and fears, navigating the storm both outside and within themselves. As the wind howled, a spark ignited in Callan's heart. "Let's make a plan," she proposed, her eyes glimmering with determination. "We can learn from the Deathworlders. They have survived these storms for generations. Together, we can endure this trial." With that, the leaders began to strategize. They pooled their resources, utilizing their varied skills and experiences. Each leader contributed ideas on how to secure the lodge, create warmth, and support one another during the storm. In that moment, they began to form the foundation of something new, a collaborative spirit that transcended their past rivalries. As they braced themselves for the storm, Callan realized that the true challenge lay not only in surviving the harsh Deathworld, but in forging the unity that could withstand any tempest, whether it came from nature or their own histories. And as the winds howled outside, they stood together, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Hours stretched into what felt like days as the storm raged outside. The howling winds and swirling snow formed an impenetrable barrier between the leaders and the outside world. Inside the lodge, the atmosphere transformed from one of trepidation to a hive of collaboration. They worked tirelessly to fortify their temporary sanctuary, employing strategies drawn from each leader's unique experiences. Callan, feeling a surge of purpose, led discussions on resource management. "We need to ration our supplies," she urged, glancing at the dwindling food stores. "Each of us has different skills we can utilize. Theric, your people are known for their resourcefulness. What do you suggest?" Theric considered the question, his brow furrowed. "In our world, we often use preserved foods. I can help with that, but we'll need to share what we have. It's time to trust one another fully." Callan felt a sense of pride in her colleagues. Their vulnerabilities had led to the kind of honesty she had hoped for, one that would sow the seeds of true partnership. Kelthar chimed in. "We can also collect snow for water. I know methods to purify it, but we'll need to work together to keep the fires burning." As they formulated plans, the storm outside began to shift. The winds howled ferociously, and the temperature dropped, yet an eerie calm started to settle in the lodge. The leaders huddled closer to the flickering flames of their fire, sharing stories that revealed the complexities of their lives back home. Each tale forged deeper connections, drawing them into a shared understanding of their motivations and struggles. Just as a sense of unity began to blossom, the door of the lodge burst open, the heavy wooden frame creaking ominously. A gust of wind sent a flurry of snow swirling into the room. The leaders turned to see a group of Deathworlder scouts enter, their faces etched with urgency. "Kelthar," one of the scouts shouted, breathless and wide-eyed. "The storm is shifting. It's changing direction, and we've lost several outposts in the vicinity." We need to prepare for the worst. Callan felt her heart race. What does that mean for us? The scout's face hardened. It means we could be cut off from rescue. We may have to make a decision soon. Stay here and risk being trapped, or try to brave the storm to reach safety. Gracklin's expression darkened. You expect us to venture into that chaos? We'll be risking our lives. Calthar stepped forward, his voice resolute. If we do not act, we may lose not only ourselves but the bonds we have begun to forge. We can use the skills we've developed together to navigate this storm. The Deathworld has tested us, but we are stronger than we realize. Callan felt a swell of courage. We have survived the storm within these walls. Now it's time to prove that we can endure what lies beyond them. We cannot let fear dictate our choices. We need to work together and show our willingness to protect one another. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group as they nodded in determination. The leaders quickly gathered supplies, preparing for the harsh journey ahead. Callan felt a flicker of hope amidst the uncertainty. They had already faced the storm of their past and emerged stronger. Now they would face the literal storm together. As they bundled up in layers of thick furs and gear, Callan found herself standing next to Gracklin. I never imagined we'd be in a situation like this, she admitted. But I'm grateful to have you here. Gracklin's expression softened, and he replied, It's time to let go of old grievances. If we're to survive this, we'll need each other more than ever. With their resolve solidified, the leaders stepped out into the tempest. The wind screamed around them, and snow whipped against their faces, but together they forged a path through the swirling chaos. The icy landscape felt alive, a reflection of their own determination. As they trudged forward, the storm's fury surged, but so did their shared strength. Each leader relied on the others, forming a living chain as they navigated the unforgiving terrain. Callan took a deep breath, feeling the chill bite through her layers, but she was buoyed by the knowledge that they were no longer just leaders of rival factions. They were allies, united in their fight against both the storm and their pasts. In that moment, Callan understood that they were not just fighting to survive the Deathworld. They were forging the new legacy together. The storm, fierce and relentless, could not extinguish the spark of hope that burned within them. Together, they would emerge from this ordeal transformed, not only as leaders but as a united front against the darkness that had once threatened to engulf them. As Callan and the leaders pushed through the storm, each step felt heavier than the last. The biting cold seeped through their gear, and visibility dwindled to mere feet. Snow piled up around them, creating a treacherous landscape that shifted with every gust of wind. The howling winds were relentless, but the leaders pressed on, hearts synchronized in determination. Calthar led the way, his large frame breaking through the snowdrifts as he called back to the others. Stay close. If we lose sight of one another, we could become disoriented. His voice, though muffled by the howling wind, radiated confidence, and Callan found strength in his presence. Suddenly, Thurok stumbled, sinking into a deep snowbank. I can't, he gasped, struggling against the weight of the snow. Without hesitation, Gracklin extended a hand, pulling Thurok back onto solid ground. You'll have to do better than that, Thurok. You're not going to be the weak link in our chain, he said, his tone both teasing and encouraging. Thurok chuckled, shaking off the snow as he regained his footing. I appreciate the vote of confidence, Gracklin, he replied, a glimmer of gratitude in his eyes. The bond they were forging felt palpable, warming Callan's heart amid the storm. Each leader was beginning to understand that vulnerability didn't equate to weakness. Instead, it fostered camaraderie. After what felt like hours, they approached a ridge. Calthar signaled for them to stop. We need to take a moment to regroup and plan our next move, he said, squinting against the wind as he scanned the horizon. Callan nodded, grateful for the brief respite. They huddled behind a large rock, its jagged edge providing a shield from the relentless winds. As they caught their breath, Callan glanced at the faces around her, grim but determined. They had come so far, and she felt the weight of responsibility for everyone's safety. "Do we have any idea where we are?" she asked, her voice raised to be heard over the howling storm. One of the Deathworlder scouts, a wiry figure named Lyra, pulled out a compact device. "I can pinpoint our location," she said, activating a small holographic map that flickered to life in the snow. "But the storm has disrupted the signal. It could be dangerous if we try to traverse the mountain pass ahead. There's a shelter not far from here that could provide refuge until the storm subsides." The leaders exchanged glances, the thought of safety spurring them on. Callan spoke up. "If we head to this shelter, we can regroup and assess our next steps. We need to be strategic." As they resumed their journey, the snow began to fall more gently, the storm starting to wane. Callan felt a sense of relief wash over her. The world around them transformed, the white landscape glistening under the dim light, revealing a stark beauty in the Deathworld that had seemed so unforgiving before. After another hour of trudging through the snow, they arrived at the shelter, a sturdy cave mouth, partially hidden behind a snowdrift. Inside, it opened up into a vast cavern, the walls glistening with ice formations that sparkled like diamonds in the low light. As they settled in, Callan turned to her companions. "We have proven we can rely on one another. Now we must think about how we can use this experience to build a bridge back home." Therak nodded, eyes alight with realization. "The unity we've forged here can transcend borders. If we can work together through this storm, surely we can find a way to tackle the challenges we face in our worlds." Gracklin chimed in. "I never thought I'd say this, but we are stronger together. Perhaps we should draft a joint declaration of peace, one that speaks of our experience here and the lessons we've learned." Callan felt the weight of their words. "That's a powerful idea. But we must also recognize the challenges ahead and how we can tackle them together." As they shared ideas, the cave filled with laughter and animated discussions, echoing against the icy walls. Callan felt a surge of hope. They had not only survived the storm, but had emerged stronger, united by a common purpose. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the cave, warmth blossomed. It was a sanctuary not just from the harshness of the Deathworld, but from the divisions that had once defined them. They had crossed a threshold into a new reality, one where understanding and unity flourished. Together, they would forge a new path, one where the bonds formed in the face of adversity would lead to a lasting peace, not just for themselves, but for their worlds. And as Callan glanced around at her allies, she knew they were ready to face whatever awaited them beyond the cave. A new dawn on the horizon. As dawn broke outside the cave, a soft light filtered through the icy formations, casting a serene glow over the gathered leaders. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a landscape transformed into a glistening wonderland. Callan took a moment to breathe in the crisp air, feeling a sense of renewed purpose. Inside the cave, discussions continued, each leader animatedly sharing their visions for peace. Callan looked around at her allies, their faces flushed with determination and excitement. "Today we have the chance to make history," she declared, her voice resonating through the cavern. "Let us draft our declaration, not only to solidify our alliance, but to inspire our people back home." Therak stepped forward, his voice steady. "We've all experienced the power of unity during this storm. We need to convey the importance of cooperation and understanding, especially in times of crisis." He paused, scanning the room. "Our worlds are not so different after all. We all desire peace, prosperity, and a future free from fear." Cracklin nodded vigorously, the weight of his previous misgivings now replaced with optimism. "Let's also emphasize the lessons learned from the Deathworld. It has tested our limits but shown us our potential when we work together." As they began to draft the declaration, Callan felt a thrill of inspiration. "Let's start with our shared experiences, the storm, the struggles we faced, and how we emerged stronger," she suggested. "Then we can outline our commitment to peace and collaboration, pledging to support one another in our individual challenges." With Lyra's help, they scribbled ideas on a makeshift board, each point growing into a powerful testament to their journey. Laughter and animated conversations filled the cave, echoing against the ice walls, creating a symphony of hope. As they penned the final lines, Callan glanced outside at the breathtaking scenery. The sun rising over the white landscape, illuminating the world with warmth and promise. "This declaration will be a beacon," she stated, "a signal to our peoples that we have overcome the barriers that once divided us." Finally, after hours of collaboration, they finished their declaration. The words encapsulated their experiences, their unity, and their shared commitment to peace. With a mix of pride and anticipation, Callan held the parchment aloft. "This is more than just a document. It's a symbol of what we can achieve together." Calthar's eyes shone with determination. "We must present this to our peoples, not as individual leaders, but as a united front. We are stronger together, and our alliance will serve as an example for generations to come." The leaders agreed to meet at the summit of the mountain, a place of triumph and shared experience, to announce their declaration. As they made their way back through the now calm terrain, a sense of purpose drove them forward. Once at the summit, they gazed out over the horizon, where the sun broke through the clouds, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Callan felt a rush of emotion. They had come so far, not just in distance, but in understanding. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Today, we stand together as allies, united by our shared experiences and aspirations. We are no longer just representatives of separate worlds, but members of a collective future." The other leaders joined her, their expressions resolute. "Together, we will send a message to our peoples," Callan continued, "a message of hope, strength, and unity." As the winds shifted, carrying their words across the valleys, Callan felt a sense of peace wash over her. The declaration was more than just an agreement. It was a promise, a commitment to a future where understanding triumphed over conflict. As they descended the mountain, Callan glanced back, the sun shining brightly behind them, illuminating the path ahead. They were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them, fortified by the bonds they had forged in the depths of the storm. In that moment, Callan knew their alliance would endure, proving that even in the coldest of worlds, the warmth of unity could spark a fire strong enough to light the way toward a brighter future. The Deathworld had taught them the power of collaboration, and together, they would reshape the galaxy, one step at a time.